This book was written in 2008, and when Barack Obama was president-elect for the first time, the journalists following him caught him with this book in his hand. Once he became the president, he had a full sitting with Thomas Friedman in Oval Office, in his office, discussing just this book. Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Much beyond my expectation to be amongst such a august gathering and to have distinguished seniors like General Gattuso sitting here, General Bakshi, whom I know from earlier tenure in Shillong, and many others. Wonderful meeting so many nice people who have the similar passion of reading, and I look forward to many such more occasions. All of us read books, that's the commonality and why we are all here. If I reminisce my journey, it's been through Hardy Boys, Enid Blytons, shifting on in the younger days to Sidney Sheldons and Ludlums. And then all of us find our own genre, maybe a couple of genres. Somehow I drifted towards geopolitics, environment and such kind of books. The book which I'm going to talk about is Hot, Flat and Crowded, written by a very eminent author called named Thomas Friedman. Thomas Friedman, just a word about him, he's a 3-time Pulitzer Award winner. Since the inception of this award in 1917, there are only 14 authors who've got this award 3 or more times. Maximum has been 4. So he's already been awarded 3 times. So he's a very eminent author on this genre of books which I'm going to talk about. Another reason why he suddenly became famous, this book was written in 2008. And when Barack Obama was president-elect for the first time, the journalists following him caught him with this book in his hand somewhere. And that is how it became even more famous as to what the president-elect was reading. Once he became the president, he had a full sitting with Thomas Friedman in Oval Office, in his office, discussing just this book. Why this book caught my fancy was that it is a prophecy which he wrote in 2008. It published in 2008, so maybe he wrote it about a couple of years before that. Now, what he stated at that time in 2006 or 7 is now coming true in countries like India and China, especially India. And he's written a chapter on India itself, that each household in this nation would be producing electricity on its own. And today we have solar panels and we are contributing to the national grid. So he could write it, he could visualize it in 2006 or 7 for India. This book, he's chastised America. He's an American. He's written against them that they have lost the biggest opportunity of this generation, wherein America should have taken the lead, which it did not, in renewable energy. Even now, when Trump became the president lately, the famous dialogue which he said on the podium was, dig, 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 America, dig. So they're still into fossil fuels, whereas this chap said that you've lost the thing to China, who has gone big way into renewable energy, and America does not have the intellect or the people of that intellect to get into this genre now, to get into this field. They're far behind them. Okay, word about Hot, Flat and Crowded, why this name given by him. Hot means global warming. The earth is getting hot. I'll just quote certain lines. The difference between earth being an ice ball, frozen, and what we are today is just 5 to 6 degrees of temperature, global temperature. 5 to 6 degrees only. We've already reached on that scale about 4 degrees. That gives, and that was in 2008. That gives us a cushion of about 1.5 degrees. And if people who read into this, if you see the commitments made by nations in the Paris Convention, of which Trump has taken a step back, was just that 1.5 degrees is not achieved. That 1.5 degrees is so vital that from an ice ball, we will burn. That is the difference, just 6 degrees. The word flat, a total population of about 8 billion on this planet, a large chunk becoming middle class and interconnected. A poor man in India today has a smartphone. He's connected to the world. His desire to consume is there. And a mad rush for nations, especially India, to push people into, which is good, to push people into middle class is leading to consumption. So Thomas Friedman talks about that we don't have anything left to consume. There's so much of consumption which is being done. I'll quote on this what he writes about America a little later. The middle class has tripled on this planet since 2000. That means in the past quarter century, the middle class itself has tripled. And we are now having a 5.5 billion middle class out of a population of 8.2 billion. The word crowded means population, overpopulation, an increase in population. Okay, just a map which shows the concentration of population. I'll just draw one attention. You see Europe, how densely it has become packed with population. This is what is migrating from Afghanistan, Pakistan and the Africas. And they're landing into the area where there is consumption. There's a very interesting thing which he's brought about, a unit called Americum. We talk about joules, volts, etc. A unit. 350 million is the population of America, 35 crores, with high per capita income and overconsumption. So he says, if we take 35 crore people who are consuming as much as Americans do, it comes to a figure called, say, 32. Americans consume something 32, while the rest of the world consumes near 1. That is the kind of wastage they do. Just a word about the middle class. The yellow part is the middle class, which is just from 2010 or 2000 onwards, just forged ahead. This book is full of many nice quotes. I'm not going chapter-wise or block-wise. I'm just going to read some quotes, which is very interesting lines he's used. If all you ever do is all you have ever done, then all you will get is what you've already got. जो अब तक किया है, वही करते रहोगे, तो वही मिलेगा जो अब तक मिला है. So you'll have to change. Then he says, talks about change. He wants us to change. If we want things to stay as they are, आज जैसा है, then we need to change. Otherwise, it's going to go to catastrophic levels. Okay, he says, ये हमारे यहाँ जो freebies चलते हैं, जैसे इंडिया में अभी शुरू हो गया, free बिजली, free this that. So, not that he wrote about this, but something like that. The more oil you have, there's a chapter on petrodictators and petrodollars. The more oil you have, the less policy you need. Meaning, जितने freebies दोगे, लोग उसमें खुश हैं और आपको policy की जरूरत नहीं है. You can do whatever you want then. Another one which he says, if this is a lady speaking in Iran. If only we didn't have oil. If only we didn't have oil, we would have been like Japan. Another very interesting one. Stone Age did not end because there were no stones. Stones still exist on this planet, but Stone Age does not exist. That means people innovated, they changed. There's one by Henry Ford when he used to make those horse carriages and he made the first car. So Henry Ford says, and I quote, if I had asked my customers then what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. But he made a car. On the serious note, whenever we've had an economic leap in the world, there has been a common biological or an unexploited common biological somewhere. When we needed more food, there were oceans, more fishing, more growth of agriculture. But now there are no more commons left. A word about Denmark, he says, we must understand this. In 1981, since 1981, Denmark has grown its economy by 70%. But their energy consumption is the same as in 1981. So it's a lesson for us. We need not become Americans. Okay, I'll come to this last one then. This just shows the electricity usage on the planet. You can see the dark spots. Africa is totally dark. India is shining bright. But as people become middle class, richer, the consumption of electricity is going to increase. So he gives out ways to meet this challenge. In 2008, when he published, he said countries like India, as I've already said, would start producing their own electricity. When I read this book maybe 10, 12 years back, it was unfathomable that in India someone would put a solar plant or wind energy, things like that. So he could prophesize, and there are many beautiful things which he's written about how we can meet the demand of energy in this world. Last one, We've reached this stage in India. If you see on the left, the power generation, thermal, wind, nuclear, solar, he's written a lot about nuclear. I think he's quite fancy, he takes a fancy to nuclear power. All this going into its central control center and coming for our use. But forget this, I'll just finish with the one line. He says, have you ever wondered that you have different sources of electricity generation? Solar se ban rahi hai, thermal se ban rahi hai, nuclear se ban rahi hai, but we pay the same price per unit. We don't know kahan se aa rahi. Is it possible? Is there a thought behind it? कि कोई चीज उसका रॉ मटेरियल कुछ और है, उसकी प्रोडक्शन कॉस्ट कुछ और है, लेकिन आपको 5 रुपए में ही दे रहे हैं. ये कैसे हो सकता है? You got to think about it. He says, I'll end with this. He says every generation will look back towards their previous generation and ask them one major question. He says in his generation, they would look at, he's talking about Americans. He says, I'll look up at my grandfather or father and say, what were you doing? How could you have such fancy or high prejudice against women and blacks? So that was his thing. This is my question to my senior generation. But what is the new generation going to ask us? They're going to say, you idiots, you were the richest country. You knew what was at fault. You knew what was the solution. But you didn't do anything. And what have you given to us? Thank you so much.